let's jump right into it. So yeah, we're gonna kick it off with the first question here. I'd like each panelist to just say just a single bold prediction about the next 5 to 10 years of the future of IoT on the cloud. What do you think is going to happen? What's the world going to look like 5 to 10 years from now? Keep in mind, 10 years ago, people barely knew what the cloud was. IoT was barely a thing at all 10 years ago. Okay, so a lot can change in 5 to 10 years. So I'd like to hear one bold prediction from each of you, starting with Billie. Go ahead, Billie.
Whew, so much pressure going first. I'm more of a product person, but let me start with the product and then see how I think it goes into a bigger ecosystem. I think we're going to see like much more soft interfaces that interact with one another. Oh, did you lose me? No, there you go. That interact with one another without much input from human behavior. I think that is going to be a big part of how we need to have infrastructure work, and that lots of smart devices communicating with each other in bigger networks so that the human doesn't have to input as much.
Nice. All right, Amar, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I certainly echo what Billie said, right? I mean the way that I'm looking at it is that so there are two paradigms that are kind of coming out, right? One is pervasive computing, which is basically like computation anywhere, right? And whether it is on the edge, on the cloud, on the hybrid systems, anywhere, right? And the other aspect is more of ambient computing, whereby you don't have to open up your laptop or your mobile phone to kind of work on it. But it is basically like certain computations that are happening and they are just providing you the result, right? A very good example of it is, for example, like, Alexa, right? Like, you just call it for it, you ask it some questions and you get it, right? And if you see the kind of trends like say smart mirrors and, so on, it is kind of, going into that area, that space whereby, you are kind of making it more ambient, you more pervasive, right? Whereby there is no specific endpoint, but it is almost like the intelligence is everywhere.
Nice, Edona, go ahead. It's your turn to talk about a bold prediction for the future in the next 5 to 10 years of IoT on the cloud.
Yeah, I think, as a lawyer, I'm going to sort of stick my head in that sort of space and get out of sort of what may happen in terms of from a product development point of view. I do think, before I get to the law, I do think you're going to get more of as with any innovation, you're going to have a higher adoption as we go forward of smart tech in general. And with that, I think comes a very important component of consumer awareness and consumer expectation. And I think that's going to be a very important component as we move forward. But part and parcel, I think, of that narrative, I think it's going to be this issue of consumer safety around these products that go in the marketplace. But that only sort of captures a subset of smart products and only those that are used by consumers. But I think in the same sort of paradigm, you're going to have the other non-consumer applications of smart products that embed all of these technologies, whether it's AI on an IoT device, like a simple old IoT device. I think all of this is going to come into the realm of where do you see whether it's Canada and other jurisdictions, and I think it's going to be a broader adoption of minimum standards and legislation and regulation around IoT. I think in Canada we certainly don't have it. I don't know the makeup of everybody joining us. But those in Canada will tell you in the industry will tell you that we don't have IoT specific legislation. So the way that we're operating currently, and we have been in the last 5 years, is very much specific regulators that care about that area of their little jurisdiction is sort of starting to think of minimum standards, minimum guidance. We've seen that from Transport Canada for transport applications, certainly with Health Canada on connected devices. And I think sort of each of the regulators are trying to sort of find their feet in their specific area, preparing themselves for the world of connected devices, regardless of the industry. I think we're going to see a move towards more IoT-specific legislation, but that's just my prediction.
Okay, thank you. That gives a really unique perspective. Justin, how about you? What's your big, bold 5 to 10 year prediction for the future of IoT on the cloud?
My prediction would be decentralization. So a lot of IoT, basically right now we have the big players. We have AWS, Azure, and GCP. But they're providing a single bottleneck for any failures that can happen. So, you know, blockchain is a big buzzword, but if we do see it happen, that'll be a huge disruption to the industry. You know, there's a few challenges that need to be addressed. One is the increasing number of transactions that as the network grows, it becomes more computationally intensive to, you know, calculate those transactions. And the other one is with these calculations, IoT devices are typically resource limited devices. But if we're able to solve those two issues and we can have a sustainable solution for decentralization, then I think that would be huge for the IoT industry.
Well said. I share that sentiment exactly, Justin.